Welcome to the tutorial for the Betty backpack by Notch Patterns. The first thing you'll need to do is cut out your fabric. Then make sure you fuse the interfacing to the wrong sides of the exterior pieces and also one of the internal slip pocket pieces. If you're using fabric, you may also choose to interface the straps and tab pieces, but that will depend on the weight of your fabric. The first step is to make the long straps. Take one of the long strap pieces and fold in 1 centimetre along one of the short ends and secure using some double-sided tape. Then fold in both long edges by 1 centimetre and then fold the strap in half, matching the folded edges. Using double-sided tape helps you to secure this throughout. Then pin or clip to hold in place while you stitch, starting at the top raw edge end, top stitch down one long edge across the short end and back up to the raw edge end. Keep your stitches around 2 to 3 millimeters from the edge. You probably want to lengthen your stitch slightly as this is the top stitch. Repeat with the other strap, please, and set aside. Next, we're making these short straps. Take one of the pieces and run some double-sided tape down the centre. Fold the long edges in to meet at the centre, pressing them onto the tape. And then take a rectangle ring and slide it onto the strap piece. Fold the strap in half, matching the short edges together and making sure that the rectangle ring is pushed right into the fold of that short strap. Pin in place, and then using a disappearing marker or tailor's chalk, draw a line across the connected 2 centimeters below the fold. Starting at the short ends, top stitch down one side until you meet the mark you just drew, pivot, stitch across the line, pivot again, and stitch the remaining side. If you want to, you can add a rivet to this, but we just recommend that you follow the manufacturer's instructions to do that. Then you're going to repeat exactly the same thing with the other short strap, and then for a third time with tab piece 1. The only difference with tab piece 1 is that instead of a rectangular ring, you're going to be adding the lobster clasp in. Then it's on to tab piece 2. Take tab piece 2 and run some double-sided tape along the length in the centre. Fold in the long edges to meet, and press them onto the tape. Slide both your D-rings onto the tab, making sure that the straight edge of the rings is underneath against the join of the fabric. Fold the 2 shorter ends under to meet in the middle. Make sure the D-rings are pulled apart, one at each end in the folds that have been created. Pin or clip in place. It should look like this. You're now going to stitch it to the front of your bag. To help, we suggest drawing some stitching lines onto the tab as a guide. You want to measure 2 centimeters down from each fold and draw a line across the tab, and then draw a line each side about 2 to 3 millimeters in from the edge to connect these, which gives you a rectangle marked on the tab. This becomes your stitching guide. Then you want to pin the tab to the bag as indicated on the paper pattern piece. You'll notice we're measuring in here. We've since updated the pattern and it now shows you exactly where to put it, so you can use your pattern as a guide. When you stitch, make sure you leave long threads at the start and finish of your stitching rather than back stitching. Then you want to pull these ends through to the back and knot them to secure. This just gives you a cleaner finish. Next, we're going to be attaching the short straps. Again, you can use your paper pattern piece to mark the position of the short straps at the base of the bag back. You want to align the raw edges of the straps with the raw edge of the back fabric piece. Stitch together within the seam allowance. This is what it will look like when you're done. Next, we're going to attach the long straps and tab piece number 1. Again, you'll want to use the placement guide on the paper pattern. We're measuring in here, and you could do exactly the same using your paper pattern piece to provide the measurements, or you could pin or use tailor's chalk to indicate. Lay all 3 pieces in their correct positions and pin or clip in place. All 3 will extend over the top of the edge of the bag back. Stitch across all 3 about half a centimetre from the raw ends. Then you want to repeat half a centimetre from the first stitch line. You'll end up with something like this. Next, you want to take the strap ends cover piece and fold under it 1 cm along both the long and short edges. If you're using fabric, you could press these with an iron at the folds, but if you're using faux leather, again, double-sided tape can really help to hold those edges down. You may also want to use a rolling pin to flatten the folds as much as possible, or you could press them but use a pressing cloth on faux leather to make sure that you don't melt the surface. Then you want to draw a line parallel to but 1 cm lower than the strap ends on the bag. Position the bottom edge of the strap ends cover on this line and pin in place. The strap cover should now be covering the strap ends. Stitch around the outside of the strap cover about 2 to 3 mm from the edge, then set it aside while we begin to prepare the pocket. You'll notice that our pocket piece was cut on the fold. You'll have 2 different pocket pieces. You want to put them together, right sides together, and pin in place. You should have interfacing on one of the pieces. Stitch around all sides, leaving a gap of about 5 cm in the bottom so that you can turn it through. Trim down the seam allowance and trim at the corners. Then turn through the bag through the opening that you made and press it well, making sure to push out all of the corners. Turn under the edges of the opening. Then you'll want to top stitch across the top of the pocket about 2 to 3 mm down from the edge.
Top stitch that.
Then centre the pocket on the back lining piece about 12 cm down from the top edge and stitch the 2 sides and base, closing the opening that you left as you go. Remember to leave the top open so that it can be used as a pocket. When you're finished, press. It's now time to prepare the zip. Your zip will need to measure 33 cm. This includes 1 cm of zip tape at each end for attaching the zip tabs. Fold the short ends of the zip tab into the centre and then fold in half again. Press and remember to use a pressing cloth if you're using faux leather. Place each end of the zip between the fold of a zip tab and pin or clip in place. Check that your total measurement of the zip between the 2 zip tabs folded end to folded end is 33 cm. Then lay 1 piece of exterior fabric right side up. When you attach the zip, make sure to keep any straps or tabs out of the way. Place the zipper on the top right side down, aligning the zipper tape edge to the top edge of the fabric and ensuring the zip is centered. Open the zip to halfway. Then lay one of the lining pieces on top, right side down, again lining the top edges. You'll want to make sure that the lining piece that has the pocket attached to it is matched with the back piece of the bag, so that your finished bag has the pocket inside and at the back. Using a zipper foot, stitch close to the zip teeth from one side of the bag to the other. When you meet the zip pull, stop stitching, leaving the needle in the down position. Raise the presser foot, close the zip to move it out of your way, lower the presser foot and then continue stitching. Remember to back stitch at the start and end of your stitching. Then you'll want to repeat all of this with the other side of the bag. Just make sure that the lining you've just attached is clipped out the way so it doesn't get caught in the stitching, along with any straps or tabs. Open up the bag so that the zip is in the centre and the fabrics are on either side. Press, being careful not to melt the zipper teeth with the iron. Remove the zipper foot from your machine and replace with your standard presser foot. Lengthen your stitch slightly and top stitch a rectangle about 2 to 3 mm from the edge of the fabric around the zip. Do not backstitch, but instead leave long threads at the start and end of the stitching and bring these through to the back of the exterior fabric, using a needle and tie them to secure. Then pin or clip the bag front and back together, right sides facing. Do the same with the linings, but when pinning them together, leave a gap in the bottom seam of about 8 to 10 centimeters for turning through. Make sure that the zip is open when you stitch. Stitch the side seams of the exterior and the lining, followed by the base seams. With the bag still wrong side out, pinch together the corners so that the raw edges meet and the base and side seams are aligned. Pin and stitch in place. Do this for all 4 corners. Then turn the bag through the opening you made in the lining. It's time to thread up the straps. There's a really helpful diagram of how to do this in the instructions, so if you're not sure, it's best to take a look at that. Remember that when you're folding it back on itself in this last step, you want it about 10 centimeters down from the slider bar. Remember to stitch the strap together in a square, as shown in the photographs in the instructions. You'll want to again leave long threads at the start end of your stitching and knot these to secure. If you'd like to, you can also use rivets while attaching the straps. Remember that the final step is to pull your lining out and stitch that small gap together that you created for turning it through. Then you're all finished. You finished making your Betty backpack. We hope you've enjoyed this pattern and we'd love to hear your thoughts. So remember to tag us on Instagram @NotchPatterns or leave us a review over on Etsy. We'll see you next time.